Must be time for a big moon adventure. Nothing can possibly go wrong if you just take a big enough rocket to the moon. So, fix in some extra lifting thrusters. And of course a pair of braking thrusters. Just some finishing touches. So it's a decent sized moon rocket, this one. It's got 5 medium cargoes, 4 batteries. Hang on, maybe I miscounted, let me just check. No, it's got 4 at the bottom and 1 at the top. The idea being to put ingots in the top box. And it's not connected to a connector, so any sorters on the base that sort ingots into the ingot box aren't going to just slurp the ingots I want to take to the moon out and leave me with an empty box, because that would be some embarrassing tomfoolery that you wouldn't want to admit to now, wouldn't it? So separate ingot box and then just some junk boxes down the bottom. Lots of moon junk. The moon needs junk. Question is, how many big screaming jet engines will it need to lift it off the ground and carry it halfway around the planet before it can even burn for the moon, because it's no fun travelling to the moon when it's right overhead, which it never is. No. It's always better to shoot for the moon when it's on the opposite side of the planet and you need a massive journey to get there, which is good for us because that's always how we have to go to the moon on this server. Having a choice in the matter would be dull. So, by my count, it's got a gyro, it's got forward and reverse, it's got sideys to sideys. It's got a bunch of jet engines. It's got the rockets for the moon burn. Somebody's good to go. Up and away. She's a big old bird. For a disposable rockety small grid thing, she's a big old bird at any rate. Solo trip to the moon with 5 cargo bays of priceless artifacts and no armour and defences. Just taking the common sense approach. So liftoff is entirely jet powered. We've got 4 of those batteries that have been juicing up on the connector while I finish building and loading it. So I've got a full stack of juice. So I've got about 25 minutes of flight time at maximum thrust. So the autopilot trick is, as always, you fly north. You get your ship on the right angle so that it's falling with style, and you set it up for a bit of autopilot. You just get the right angle, and it needs the occasional adjustment, but you're just sort of falling, but you're thrusting forwards, and then the edge of the earth disappears from under you and you fall some more and you thrust forward some more. And you can basically have single direction facing engines and get around, as long as landing isn't on your agenda or any kind of crazy antics like that. Leave the safe landings to the pros. If all you want to do is get around fast and you don't care how much you base load, this is the approved technique. Thought I'd go with the George Lucas style iris wipe since I'm flying a big shiny white spaceship. So we've jumped part way around the planet to a point where you can actually see the moon, which is always helpful if going to the moon is your thing. So this is 100 k's from base and 100 k's just over from the moon. So this is the thrust output for my jet engines on a separate toolbar there. With 3 minutes of jet time left, you want to be careful not to run out of power and then your rockets don't work, because the electric switch for your valve won't switch on or something daft like that. So we put the tanks off stockpile and immediately the inertial dampeners start kicking in a bunch of rocket thrust in every which direction, because we were just sort of missiling along before and not really controlling our direction. But we should have enough lift for a bit of bang zoom to the moon. It's a big old payload, but I've got a big old wodge of thrusters. Should not be an issue. We go. The idea being just to squeeze some juice out of these batteries and use these screaming jets for as long as possible, as long as there's atmosphere and as long as they'll lift me. I've got 2 small thrusters as backup up until this point, and then I'm kicking in the big daddies at 5,000 feet here. I can have a bit of a game of adjust the newtons, adjust which engines I want on. I can just have the big engines on at this point, kill the little ones. Just fart around and see what kind of thrust is needed. The gravity's down to 0.8, so constant adjustments needed as gravity fluctuates and my weight changes. Who needs to go on a diet when you can just go to the moon? So the jets are now off. We're just cruising merrily with a pair of little thrusters doing most of the work, if anything. Still got some sort of downward angled thrust going on, vectoring me up towards the moon, but slowly taking care of my previous inertial direction, sliding around the planet. So those will gradually fizz back and I'll just be going in a straight line. Got a day's worth of battery juice now that I'm not chewing it with giant jet engines. So just down to the big thrusters, dropping the amount of thrust down to slightly more appropriate levels. Checking out the lovely view. We're pretty well at phase 2 of autopilot now. We just point at the moon, dial up the amount of thrust we need to get to the moon, and then just check the amount of gravity every so often and just dial back the amount of thrust to save fuel. all there is to it. We're a nice fast projectile, so we shouldn't get shot at on the way to the moon. We shouldn't be zipping along too fast for anything but a few stray bullet holes of opportunity. So we're off to outer space, leaving Mother Earth. Only 90 kilometers to go. Plotting a direct course for my moon hole. Where are we at? 0.2 gravity. It's a fairly heavy ship, but I can probably kill off a bit of thrust. Not that I'm going to need it. There's going to be plenty of juice in these tanks. We haven't hit 20% fuel usage yet. And we're down into the very low gravity zone where we don't need a lot of thrust and a lot of fuel. 0.1716. There's a bit of a... You can get to the edge of where gravity starts going down with your jets without even kicking in your rockets. Once you do kick in your rockets, the gravity drops off relatively sharply close to the planet. When you get out to here and hit the 0.2 mark, that last 20% of gravity is strung out over quite a wide area. Even if you've got a bit of momentum here, if you run out of fuel even at 0.1, you're going to go tumbling back to Earth. Your momentum's not just going to carry you past the edge of the gravitational pull or anything. Even at 10%, it's rapidly going to slow you down and then rapidly accelerate you backwards, bum first, into a big rocky planet. So it's a good thing we've got fuel and thrust. Down to 0.1, but it's going to be at sort of 0.1-ish levels here for a while, so we're skipping forward. So this is past the gravity, obviously. Dampeners off, engines are all off. Day worth of batteries, 80% of our fuel, just coasting casual. Flying casual like Chewie through the intervening moon space. Not quite sure why my ship makes a clickety-click sound, but that's the magic of space for you, I guess. Nothing to do but admire the moon and sit back with a cup of tea. Diddly-do. Don't worry, Mr. Editor will kick in and jump us near to the moon soon. So I ended up with all this nice juicy cargo. Having a 103,000 kilogram ship, which is a solid bit of beef. Getting into some decent sized small grid ships at that size, and this thrust arrangement had more than enough juice to just throw it around. Definitely could have done this trip without the two auxiliary small thrusters, lift thrusters. Here we go, another George Lucas wipe. And we're 6 k's away from moon hole. So it's time to start time to turn your dampeners on. Yes. So now that the dampeners are on, can't help but notice that my braking engines did not fire and I'm still accelerating towards the moon at great speed. I've got an on indicator from those front thrusters. Oh, it's nice of the back thrusters to suddenly kick in and start doing some braking. I was kind of relying on those when I kicked the back end around. Okay, so we managed to not crash after a quick brake failure, because what spaceship doesn't have a brake failure? Just because you attach engines to pipes is no reason to expect them to shoot flames out when you want it. That would be crazy talk. So, how do you land a large ship without brakes? And why does this ship not have brakes? There's a little glow coming from the engines. The engines are plumbed in. They're attached directly to fuel tanks. There's a little indicator on my dashboard that says they are switched on because I switched them on. So what amazing piece of technology gets in between a jet that's got a visual indicator and got a dashboard indicator telling you that they're working, but just never makes any flame no matter what you do? How does that work? So vulture drones, I think it was, is it corrupt? No, it's just plain old space pirates. Ultra drones and some other piratey thing that I would need functioning eyeballs to read. Let's fly a drone over this way because why wouldn't corrupt want to get in on the action? Yeah, I can see little flames in those front engines. It's a shame they don't do anything because this is a big heavy ship and big heavy ships without brakes are going to die. So to apply brakes we swing 180 degrees and then we look at our backward engines which are switched on and we wonder, why is this such a buggy shit of a thing? Oh look, some flames came out. That's great. Now why can't you be inertial dampeners? Is it a lot to ask for that you be inertial dampeners? So if we thrust forward and then release, we get the shit shot out of us. The important thing is I could tell those brakes were not working.